So yeah, I've only been in the higher education space now for 8 months, and so it's been very interesting trying to figure out like how the machine works and how everything fits together. And one of the large deficits that I've seen just in meeting with people and in my own college experience is that there seems to be a serious lack of genuine creativity. And so being in love with creativity and all things creative, I was looking at ways to figure out how to infuse that into the system. And one of those ways I found was through design thinking. And I'll kind of journey through that experience with you guys. But to get started, I want us to think about the most memorable produced video that you've ever seen. You think of one, you don't have to say it, just got it? Mostly? I'm seeing blank stares, yeah? Yeah? Okay, this is my favorite one. The reason that gets people's gears turning and get them cranking, and the reason that I still remember it after watching it 3 years ago, we'll go into shortly. But who has been to Disney? Show of hands. Who remembers the first time they went into Disney? Who's remembered the first Disney film they ever watched? I know, right? Like there's this thing that evokes a sense of stickiness to it, that it's built inside of your being. And what is it? And I bet you that the reason that the Poop Face video and Disney is so memorable is because they share two things. Skip the head. One is probably you perceive them as authentically good or beautiful to you as a person, which is why they resonated with you. And two, they were presented in a new and fresh way, which means it was unknown to you, right? The video that came to you, babies, everybody loves babies. Everybody knows what the poop face looks like. Presenting it in a way with music in a new way was truly beautiful and new, and it was sticky. It made you remember it. And the same with Disney. It's this beautiful, good place that you enter into. And who knew you could enter into a place like this that would fill you with so much of that warm feeling that you get inside? And so what is this warm feeling that you get inside? It's wonder. I like to call it wonder. So when we produce wonder for other people, it becomes sticky, right? And when we experience wonder, gratitude, it produces gratitude, and gratitude earns permission and trust. So, for instance, the first time I ever held my first child, the amount of wonder, the good that I experienced from that moment, and the unexpectedness of it makes it part of me forever. And the only thing that I can be, the only appropriate response for that is to feel gratitude towards this experience. And I think we have a great opportunity, especially in higher education and two-year schools, is to create wonder for the people that we seek to serve. Give them wonder and they will remember you. Now, this is true for just about any interaction that you'd have with higher education, but since I'm a videographer and I told you I talk about video, we'll go into more video work. So this is the guiding principle. I believe that every creative endeavor that we go into, we need to strive to produce wonder for the people that we seek to serve. So how do we start? How do you create this experience? How do you create this newness that didn't exist before? And how do you find the thing that is authentically good and beautiful for the people that you're seeking to serve? You get creative, and creativity is difficult. It's very challenging to actually be creative, to search into the ether. And what I define as creativity is purposefully reordering reality into something new. And so that could be it's a very broad definition, but it's something that you can apply to just about any endeavor. It's taking the things in our reality, organizing them with a purpose that someone can relate to. So how do you get creative? Man. So this is my visual representation of the creative process, right? We are sitting down in the boardroom or in the wherever, and they're like, all right, let's come up with an idea. And everyone goes, yes, an idea, let's go. And then what happens? A bunch of groupthink happens, right? Everyone's like, let's do this. And the boss says, no, let's do this. And everyone goes, oh, yes, let's do what the boss said, because that's going to not get me fired. And then it might get me promotion sometime in the future. And so when somebody else comes in with an idea, it becomes a struggle. And so it's a really difficult thing to move from this scribblingness that just comes inherently with creating anything new, this very difficult thing, this friction that you experience, to actually consolidating all of those thoughts and all those ideas and creating a wonderful experience, or a wonderful video, or a wonderful campaign. So how do we go about this process, right? First, I want to show you two different outcomes that happen as we move through this process. And when we decide to exit will give the outcome of whether we are memorable or not memorable. First, when you're going through the resistance and you're struggling and you're frustrated and you're coming up with ideas and brainstorming's falling flat and people are getting frustrated and deadlines are coming, you're like, oh yeah, we'll just do what we did last year. Or so-and-so was doing this cool thing, let's just do what they did. And then, at least we'll get something out of the door. And that's when you create mediocre work. And mediocre, the definition of mediocre is like pretty much creating the average. The thing that everyone else is doing, you end up doing. And when you do mediocre work, do you get remembered? No. Did Disney do mediocre work? No. Does Netflix do mediocre work? No. Does Amazon? No. They all come up with their own versions of wonder that aren't mediocre. They're new and presented in a new and exciting way. When you do the work to get to the wonder, when you scribble and you fuss and you fight to reach the unicorn, that's when you start creating sticky work, sticky videos, things that you can actually remember, and that's going to set you apart from the competition or from the four-year colleges, or sometimes we're not even competing against other institutions. Sometimes we're competing against people's mentalities of how they view themselves, right? I cannot do this, I cannot do that, I cannot do this. When you can present them, even in video format, a new way of seeing themselves that is good, beautiful, or true in a new and interesting way, then you can overcome that competition that they even have in their head. And this idea fascinates me. It's so interesting. So that's the journey, right? The journey is that. It's a difficult journey. It's not easy. So how do we go from the wondering process to creating wonder? I've discovered that design thinking creates a systematic approach that allows you to be creative in ways that I have not seen before. And design thinking was popularized by John and David Kelly. They own a design firm called IDEO, and they were tasked over the last 3 decades with helping Apple come up with products. They created the first prototype of the mouse, and so they kind of popularized the idea. And in essence, it's a human-centered approach to innovation that draws from the designer's toolkit and mindset to help creatively solve problems. And so mindset and toolkit are the two things that we're going to dive into today. There are many different ways to use design thinking, so it's not necessarily only for creating a video or for creating a marketing campaign. It can be used for many, many different things, creating processes to be more efficient. They've done projects to help kids eat better in school. They've done projects to help build audiences for struggling soccer teams here in the United States. So you can apply it in many, many different ways. That makes it really interesting. So an example that I have from Northwest Florida State College, this is the video that got silver. I'm a bit sad it didn't get gold, I'm not gonna lie. But I understand how it goes. So I actively used design thinking to come up with this. This is the first video that I ever did for them. And so they were still, open to my weird ideas and crazy thinking. But here it goes.
Navigating life is flying into the unknown. It's not knowing how much failure will lead to success. It's the challenge to be ready, no matter what comes your way. It's the joy of not having to fly into the unknown alone. Come, take flight with Northwest Florida State College.
All right, so in order to do that, we came up with for prototypes and different ways to run down, and I'll show you some examples as we go through them. So that's kind of how I was able to produce something that was very different than anything they've ever done before to engage an audience that was new and effective. Wait, go back one. So for our purposes today, for video, we're gonna go through one tool and 4 key mindsets to help you go from the wondering journey into creating wonder. And these aren't the only ways. These are the few that I feel like we had time for and that might give you the best ability to execute on your own. What I'm learning as I'm talking with you guys is that there's a lot of 1 or 2 people teams in the system. And so 1 person or 2 people like just wearing multiple different hats. And so I feel like these are some good principles that you could apply to help come up with more creative work if you don't have the money to outsource it to other institutions. So 1, the tool is to create a design brief, is to give your video journey a direction. Where are we going? Like, what are we trying to achieve? What's the goal? The exercise that you guys can answer before you start production with any video is answer these 4 questions. Who is it for? Why should this exist? What is the desired outcome? And where will it live? Depending on how you answer these questions, will give you a roadmap on how to make decisions as you move forward in the creative process. So for our video that I showed, who's it for? Students who feel alone in navigating their college journey. So it's more of like a psychological rather than demographical approach to targeting them. Why should this exist? Well, we just launched our new marketing campaign and we wanted to create this in order to get the word out there. Well, what is the desired outcome? Brand awareness. So they pretty much flooded every single media outlet that they could with this video to show our heart and what we stand for. And where will it live? Cable TV, Facebook, YouTube, and then on presentations like this. Creative mindset number 2 is get inspired. Diversify your experience and get fresh new ideas. If we don't dip into other avenues of the creative process, it'll be very difficult for us to come up with things on our own because the creative process is so challenging. So being able to see what other people are doing, get ideas from other industries even, is a really good way to do that. What I love to do for me personally as a videographer is subscribe to Dribbble, Behance, and video channels. These are creative platforms that people share their work and take time to immerse yourself in them. Sometimes you're like, oh, I don't have time to find inspiration. I've often found myself thinking that way as well. But it is so important. So now what I do is I take 50 minutes out of my day, even when I just get there and I don't want to do any work, and I look at inspirational videos and designs and animations, just so I can kind of flood my head with new ideas and new ways of putting things together as I move through the day. For the culture, so that's one thing actually I forgot to discuss. I'll bring it up here. These tool sets and these mindsets are most effective when they're integrated into the culture that you're working in. And that's difficult because we all have bosses, right? And whether their ideas align with ours and their creative vision aligns with ours really depends on who they are and how they are. And also the people that you are managing, whether they have the same creative idea and vision as you are. And so aligning that creative culture into one entity is challenging. And so, which is why I added the little culture aspect over there, because these are exercises that you might be able to do with the people you're working with in order to instill this creative culture into the people that you're working with. You're trying to work together to serve the students. So culturally, for here, ask other departments their opinions on some of your marketing challenges. I started doing this, and people thought I was crazy. Like I'd go to the SGA, and I'd go to admissions, and I'd go to the finance people, and like, hey, we're doing this thing. What do you think? And they go, I don't know. This is so foreign to them that I would even broach something of a creative nature with them. But eventually they started warming up to it, and they started getting invigorated by these different just kind of conversations that I'm able to have with them. And believe it or not, they have some really good insights, oftentimes on because they see it from a different perspective, right? And so that's something that might be an easy or not so easy thing for you guys to do is just get a plethora of thoughts and experiences on certain marketing challenges that you have. Go for quantity, especially when you're coming up with ideas, so brainstorming sessions. They're becoming very popular, that you come up with 2 or 3 ideas, then you vote on those 2 or 3 ideas, and then the boss chooses which one to go for. Or the one that gets voted in is like not a great option, but because everyone thinks that that's what everyone else wants, then it gets selected, and it's not actually focused to the people that you're seeking to serve, right? That makes it very difficult. So for video, oh, and this is another good point. The more bad ideas you come up with, like the better ones you'll eventually have. It's like I forget the statistic, but essentially, you come up with like a bunch of really terrible ideas, you have a better chance of coming. But there's a few good ones that you can then execute on and move on to the next stage of production. So some simple exercises for video. When thinking of ideas or video in a group, give each person a sticky pad. They can only have one. They have to write down one idea per sticky pad and then give them a time limit for coming up with as many ideas around the creative brief as you possibly can. This oftentimes gets very uncomfortable because they look at you like you're crazy because, I only have one idea. No, you have many. You just need to get used to letting them flow, hopefully I didn't, but it might come up sooner, but a really good activity to just get people into the creating ideas mode is to get them to come up with really bad ideas. So same principle, but you come up with ideas that are just ridiculous, that would never work, that you would you would get scorned for doing, and that kind of gets them loosen up and come up with ideas. And oftentimes, some of those crazy ideas, if you redefine them a little bit or look at them in a different light, end up being successful. That's interesting. Same thing with culture. When you're coming up with a marketing problem and you're looking for solutions and you're doing a brainstorm group, this is a really good way to get as many ideas out on the table as possible so that you then can take those ideas, prototype them, and put them into action. So this is one of our brainstorming thoughts, ideas. I just throw everything on whiteboards. I have this huge whiteboard where I work, and they have this little one so I can transfer ideas back and forth to give me a bit more of objective fields. But as you can see, it's just a mess, right? These are all sticky notes stacked on sticky notes stacked on sticky notes. So we come up with about 100 ideas, and then you see which one sticks and which one doesn't. Get comfortable with uncomfortability. When you're going through the morass of creativity and you're wandering, it isn't comfortable. It's not fun when you're in it and you're struggling, and which is why people exit, right? Because they don't want to feel that discomfort anymore, and you give up and you do mediocre work. So what I do to practice failure is I come up with paper prototypes of my videos, and then I share it with everyone, and then people tell me what they think. And because they're prototypes and you put work into them, when they tell you that sucks, then it doesn't feel good. But you got to do it. So that's what I do for videos. Culture. Okay, so this is where the bad brainstorm session comes in. There we go. I knew I put it in here somewhere. Bad brainstorm, terrible ideas. People can reject them at will, and you move on. You move forward with your life. So these are the ones that I came up with. This was for our online marketing campaign. We pitched them to the president, and he rejected all of them. Yes. This was the Take Flight one that we put together with a typography lookbook and a production schedule and all those fun things. I had the team come around and see all the sticky notes over there, cross out what they liked, add what they didn't like. It was kind of a collaborative process that allowed us to create something that was decently good. Fail forward, flip failures into learning opportunities. So only have this be a 5 to 10 minute exercise. Write down all the failed prototypes or failed ideas that didn't work. So like my 3 ones that didn't work. Why were they not accepted, or why did they fail? And then how can we use that to move forward? Do the same thing with larger marketing failures that didn't work. And it's important to do this with the prototypes and the larger campaigns that didn't actually work. Let me grab some water real quick. Excuse me. All right, so those are the 4 mindsets in the single tool. My ode to you and my encouragement is that wonder is not lost. It was stomped out of us when we were kids growing up. They put us through an industrial complex education system, and they expect us to be creative. This is a challenge. Wonder is not lost, and with the right creative mindset and with the right prototypes and with the right tool sets, we can produce wonder for the people that we seek to serve. And to me, that is extremely, extremely exciting. Give up the journey to create, to be creative, and produce mediocrity. Work for wonder, and you can become remarkable. This community and what we do and how we present it can be remarkable. That makes me excited. What will you decide to do? That's up to you. It's difficult work, but I think it's worth pursuing. Thank you, guys. I'd love to connect. I'll be around for questions on after this because there's another person coming. I spelled my name wrong. Great. Wools. There's an S in the back of Wools. I'm known for not being great at spelling, but it's my name, so you know. You can download the presentation at designforwonder.com. I have it up for you guys. And IDOU has online design thinking courses. I've taken 5. I'm an online IDOU alumni coach, and it's made all the difference for me. It's helped me come up with the creative ideas and share that with the team. So thank you guys so much for having me. It was great seeing you. Say? Oh, can I? Okay. Any questions? Please have a question. Yes, you have a question.
In your last creative mindset, you said to write down all the failed ideas and failed videos. What do you constitute as a failed video?
That's a great question. So if it doesn't follow up with the desired outcome, or if it's by the higher-ups say that was bad, you might not agree with them, but at least then you can understand their mindset and what they care about. And the next time that you produce and create, figure out what's wonder to them and then produce for that. Hopefully they're in alignment with you when it comes to what you want, how you want to choose to serve the students or whatever your goal is. But that's kind of how I think about constitute as a failure. That's a great question. Anything else?
Focus on the content being appealing to the student or younger student, maybe, versus what they think is a good video.
Yeah. So the question was, how do you convince higher-ups to be creative? I don't have an answer yet. I've only been in this for eight months, so I'm still trying to figure out the systems, like how to convince them. It seems like people really care about data, and so if you give them a data sheet of, that's at least my strategy that I'm trying to go about. That showing them the data around it, and then coming up with creating an interesting culture has worked really well for me in the meantime. Every time the president sees me, he's like, Brian, you're doing a great job. You're so creative. We love having you around. So like, you're crazy and we're going to fire you, you know? So so that those are good things that I'm hearing, which means he's becoming in alignment with kind of what I'm thinking as well. So slowly but surely, I guess, is the process. Yeah, I'll let you know. Yeah, when I figure it out. Okay, all done? Cool. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.